Hey guys, welcome to Thoroughly Entertained. This week my sister and I will be talking about Warm Bodies. She's going to give me her review on the new ABC cooking show The Taste. I'll share my review on the final book of the Wheel of Time series, A Memory of Light, and we'll give our recap of the Super Bowl, what we thought about the game and what we thought about the commercials.
Okay, so this week we went and saw Warm Bodies.
Yes.
And a quick plot summary. It's about a post-apocalyptic world and zombies have taken over. Some disease struck them and zombies were created. And most of the city's population is now holed up behind a huge wall. And zombies roam all the rest of it. And a group of young survivors, if you will, go out to do some foraging, trying to find some medicine and supplies to take back to the city, and they're attacked by a group of zombies. And one of the zombies is our title character, R.
Yes.
And he sees one of the young women fighting and his heart literally starts to beat. He starts to like her and find interest in her. And he saves her and takes her back to his airplane where he lives at the airport, and it is through their relationship that they start to fall in love. And he is definitely not like the other zombies.
Right.
And they have this interesting connection that will start to transform not only him, but the other zombies in this movie. So what did you think of it?
I actually really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a clever way to tell a story like this. I thought the acting was really good. I thought the way they did the makeup was good. In particular, I like the fact that the story was told from the point of view of R, the zombie.
Right.
You know, normally you don't get to hear a story like this from this type of character. And, you know, from the exterior, he's kind of dead-eyed, shuffling around, but yet he has this very vivid and active inner monologue where, you know, he'll chide himself for not being able to say something more eloquently when he has to grumble out some chopped up words. And it's funny, and I think the music cues are really good in it. I really enjoyed Teresa Palmer, who's, I think, a great young actress who's been good in everything I've seen her in. Nicholas Hoult is tremendous as R the zombie.
Yeah.
You know, he does a great job of having his shuffle walk and you know, really
that dead-eyed stare.
That dead-eyed stare. And he said in an interview that he thought it would make him feel like more of a zombie if he didn't blink. And so if you watch a lot of the movie, there'll be long shots of his eyes where he does not blink. He is incredibly committed, and I really liked it.
Well, and I totally agree with you on all of those points, but what most struck me about is the larger overarching theme of the movie, which is about connection and finding connection. And at one point in the movie, at the very beginning in fact, R is remembering what the airport would have looked like when people used to fly and everyone was on iPods and cell phones and not at all connected to each other. And the fact that the simple act of him holding, you know, the girl's hand in the movie starts this chain reaction with the other zombies of a connection, that they start to change into humans again, really is a beautiful idea, that it is through the connection that we have with other people that we ourselves are transformed.
Yeah, and it's not done in a kind of a sappy way or an overly emotional way. Again, the story's told with a lot of humor, with a lot of interesting plot points. There's a little bit of danger. Yeah. You know, there's a few side characters that I think are good. I think Rob Corddry is good as the zombie best friend. I think Annalie Tipton, who's in the movie, does a really good job as Teresa Palmer's character's best friend. You know, she's interesting, she's funny, and you know, I think this book was based on a young adult novel that you were telling me about.
Isaac Marion is the author.
Right, and I think because of that, it's probably going to be unfairly lumped in with some of the other kind of supernatural love stories that are going around now. I think there's the movie The Host. I think there's, you know, Beautiful Creatures, The Moral Instruments, Twilight. But this isn't like any of those other things. It's not dark, it's not brooding or mysterious or suspenseful or overly melodramatic. It's funny, it's fun, it's light, it's, you know, it's really an entertaining story that's told at a pretty good pace. Right. You know, and I think it's really something that most people would enjoy seeing if they went and saw it in the theater. Yeah,
I think this is a movie that anyone could enjoy. Yeah. Because it is funny and a little suspenseful, and it's not too gory.
No, not at all.
You know, at one point he is eating someone's brain, and it's through eating his brain that he starts to fall in love with, you know, our title character, because he gets the memories of her dead boyfriend as he eats her brain. You know, and so I thought that was interesting as well, so that he can start to understand and make those deeper connections. And anyways, it's just a charming movie, really interestingly done. And I definitely think that our viewers would enjoy watching it.
Absolutely.
So now let's go on to a show that I sort of discovered this week and really enjoyed, which is The Taste on ABC.
Okay.
And the basic premise of The Taste is home cooks and chefs present one tiny little bite of food to 4 professional judges. And if the judges like them, they're going to select them for their team and compete against each other. And if they don't, they go home. It's really quite simple. And it's based off of a blind audition system similar to The Voice.
Okay.
And so what I like about the show is the fact that home cooks and chefs, professional chefs, have equal footing. It is not about how beautiful you can make an entire presentation of food. It really is about the one bite. And our lead judges, Anthony Bourdain, Nigella Lawson, Ludo, a French guy who I can't pronounce his last name, and Brian Malarkey, a restaurateur and chef from Southern California, really are forceful and dynamic personalities who have very distinct and different tastes. They have not been unanimous on any of the people that they have selected to be on their teams or what they've really liked. And so I'm curious to see how the rest of the series will go, given that they will continue to taste the food as a blind tasting, which means that there's the heightened suspense that they could send home one of their own teammates.
So even during the competition round, they're not going to know who's putting the food in front of them? Oh, that's interesting. That's kind of a new twist on something like that.
So, and that's what I really like about it. So I'm hoping that the show will, you know, hold my interest as it goes on, so.
Yeah, I'm planning on this. I really enjoyed your review of it that you did on the website, and I'm going to start watching it now. I tend not to like reality competition shows during the audition rounds, and I really like them during the competition phase, so I'm going to start picking up the show this week and watching it to see what I think. So
yeah,
it looks interesting.
All right, so now tell me about a book that you, or let's say a book series that you've been reading for the last, well, I don't know how long, since you were in high school, I guess.
Yeah.
So tell me about A Memory of Light.
The Wheel of Time series is a series of books that's been going since 1990, in January of 1990, so it's 23 years that the author's been writing the series. I've been reading them since 1997. Ostensibly, it's just kind of a fantasy epic along the lines of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, you know, the Belgariad from David Eddings, you know, the Lord of the Rings series from J.R.R. Tolkien, the Chronicles of Narnia. It's one of those types of series.
Okay.
It's really an essential fantasy series for anybody who's a fan of the genre. It's a big commitment. It is 14 books. The books are very long. They're very densely packed. But they did a terrific job kind of wrapping the story up in ways that were satisfying but unexpected. There were things that were, you know, there were characters that died that you didn't think would die, that you thought were essential to the story. And one of the real key points that I thought they made in this was the importance of the sacrifice of every individual during a conflict as large as the battle between good and evil. How every single person who fights is a hero. And you know, they tell it in a really interesting way. And the addition of Brandon Sanderson over the course of the last 3 books, he came in after the initial author, Robert Jordan, passed away, and he finished the series for him. Added a little bit of elegance and kind of poetry to the writing that didn't exist before, since the series was so complex and so dense. Brandon Sanderson's a brilliant writer. I've liked everything he's ever written, and adding him to this series just made it better and better as it went on, and the finale was as good as I could have possibly hoped for.
Well, you know, you and the rest of our brothers, most of them are fantasy novel fans and have been recommending that I read this series for a long time. So I will definitely have to start with the first book.
Okay.
See if I can, you know, since fantasy is not normally my genre, but I will definitely give it a shot, given that you guys have been so happy with the conclusion of the series. So
yeah, I would tell anybody to read the Wheel of Time series, and the finale, A Memory of Light, is terrific.
All right, thank you. Next up, the Super Bowl.
All right.
So we are on location at Scott's house where we've just watched the Super Bowl, and I know you're heartbroken right now because your 49ers lost. So, but can you still give us some sort of analysis, since I don't know that much about football? So what happened in this game?
Well, ultimately the Ravens came out with a lot of energy. They played great at the beginning of the game and took a huge lead, and no matter how hard the 49ers tried, they just weren't able to ever fully catch up. And the problem is in a lot of key spots, the Ravens made big plays and the 49ers didn't. You know, the 49ers wide receivers had the ball just ticking off the tips of their fingers, or, you know, when a ball would get tipped by the Ravens, the 49ers couldn't come up with the interception, or, you know, it was just little things like that, you know, that always just kept them a little bit too far behind. And, you know, I thought the 49ers were going to win this football game, and at times they played great. But
like the third quarter, they brought it back.
In the beginning of the fourth quarter, but Baltimore ultimately, you know, played a better football game from beginning to end.
Well, it's rough, you know.
Yeah, it is.
It's their first Super Bowl they've ever lost, and
absolutely, yeah, it's tough.
And well, hopefully they'll be back next year and can win it.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So let's look at some of the other moments of the Super Bowl, since the Super Bowl's not just about the football, it's also about the halftime show and the commercials. So the halftime show was Beyonce, and like all, I'd say, halftime shows, lots of fireworks, lots of lights, lots of dancers. Beyonce looked fantastic, she sounded fine. Although I thought it was a little funny that when Destiny's Child came in and they were singing their solos, I turned to you and I was like, why aren't their mics louder? Like, you could hear her singing well, but when the other two, Michelle Williams and Kelly Rowland, were singing, it was much quieter. You could barely hear them, and so I thought that was a little unfortunate, given that, you know, they should have... You should be able to hear them in a moment like that, but you know, the halftime show was like most of the halftime shows are, you know, just fun and loud and not a whole lot of actual singing, and it's more just the spectacle, I can't even talk. The spectacle of the actual event.
Yeah, and I don't think there'll be any controversy about this year's Super Bowl halftime show. Nothing crazy or weird happened. If you bet on Jay-Z, if you made the prop bet betting that Jay-Z would show up, you lost that one. He didn't show up to perform. So, you know, it was okay. I'm not the world's biggest Beyonce fan, but the performance was fine. It's good for something like this.
All right, so let's talk about your favorite and your least favorite commercials.
My favorite commercial was very early on in the broadcast. I like the Audi commercial about the kid that goes to prom by himself, but the Audi gives him all the confidence in the world. So he goes in there and he kisses the prom queen and drives home with a shiner because the prom king punched him in the eye, but he still had the greatest night of his life. I thought that was actually a really cool, funny commercial. I didn't really have a least favorite. I thought the GoDaddy commercial with the kiss was gross.
So gross.
But I mean, like, you know, it is what it is. GoDaddy's not the arbiter of taste, I suppose, in these Super Bowl commercials.
Yeah, that would have been my least favorite because that kiss I found so repulsive.
Gross.
Yes. Yeah. You know, perfect match. Well, we'll be sharing the link to where you can watch all the Super Bowl commercials, so if you didn't get a chance to see them, you can look at them. My personal favorite commercial was the Tide commercial on the Miracle Stain. The guy got a stain on his jersey and it looked like Joe Montana, and then he starts to license it and all of this stuff, huge fame, and then his wife washes the jersey and the stain comes out because of Tide. And I just thought it was a funny... Given that we're big 49ers fans and Joe Montana fans, it was just a funny, fun commercial.
Yeah, I like that commercial a lot as well. That was probably my second favorite of the night. Overall, I don't think there was any like terrible commercials. Like I said, neither was like the GoDaddy commercial because it was kind of gross. But there wasn't anything terrible. There wasn't any like huge, like, oh, that was awful or in poor taste or anything like that. So I think the commercials overall would be fairly successful. But I think the two standouts, I thought, for me were the Audi and the Tide commercial.
And I thought it was really interesting that the two car commercials, there was owned by the same, you know, parent company was Jeep and Dodge. You know, Dodge, that had Dodge, which was like raw to the farmers, and Jeep to raw to the soldiers, that were really heart-wrenching and thought-provoking and respect, you know, these two groups of people, which we should respect, you know. So I thought they were like the most heartwarming or touching commercials of the day. So
they definitely played very heavily on the heartstrings aspect of it. And every Super Bowl, there's a few commercials that try to be touching or heartwarming, and you know, I think those did pretty well in that regard. I thought the military one was a little bit overplayed, but I thought the farming one was actually pretty good. I mean, you know, farmers are kind of an underrepresented part of society, and the fact that, you know, they would devote that long of a commercial, because it was a long commercial.
It was a long commercial.
Like, it was pretty cool. I thought they did a good job with it.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of Thoroughly Entertained. If you enjoyed what you saw, make sure to like us below and leave a comment if there's something you're dying for us to review. As always, make sure to check out our website at thoroughllyentertained.com, because we put way more stuff on there than we can include in our weekly videos. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.